Welcome to Board Now's Cult Rants, and on this video I will be reviewing the fourth episode of Jessica Jones Season 3, and it is called A.K.A. Customer Service is Standing By, and another funny little title. Some good episode titles this season. So I'm going to get pretty much straight into it. I think it picks up again this episode. I mean, as I was saying on my last review, the last episode wasn't bad per se, and it was, again, it was building quite nicely, but yeah, I felt it did drag a bit. It was a bit of a come down after the two-parter which started the season, which I thought got things off to a really strong start. And yeah, it just felt dragging, like it was dragging its heels a bit in the third episode. But it was fine. I didn't really have many problems with that episode. But yeah, I think this really starts getting into things now and starts setting up really what the season's going to be about. So we sort of learn the identity of what's going to be the season long villain in this episode, and we also find out more about Eric. We find out his sort of identity and secret. So those are kind of the two main points of the episode, and it feels, sort of nicely focused. It doesn't feel kind of scattershot like maybe some episodes have been, certainly last season and a little bit this season, not so much this season, but it is nicely focused and we do get into the meat of those plots. So yeah, it's a strong episode. So I will start off with Eric, and we open with quite an interesting scene involving him, because the first scene is him essentially being, bullied or roughed up by this sort of crime family. I believe they were into drugs or something. It's quite an interesting sort of dynamic. You've got the mother of the family, who's like the sort of the kingpin, if you like, the sort of big boss, and it's obviously playing on that idea of, crime families and the mother having sort of all the power, which I guess is a nice little sort of link to some of the themes of Jessica Jones as rule. We're seeing more powerful, more complex, more flawed sort of women. I think that's one of the show's great strengths. So yeah, we open with that, and the actress looked familiar actually. Pretty sure I've seen her out of something, but not quite sure what. Maybe someone can help me out in the comments, assuming you've been watching along. But yeah, so that's the first scene where Eric is being roughed up by them, and it becomes clear that he owes them money. And because it opened with that, I was a bit thrown through the loop, because the end of the last episode was Eric and Jessica sort of having a moment, and there was a strange sort of vibe as they kind of, as they touched each other, and wasn't quite sure what was happening, but it obviously gave the impression that Eric, there was something more to him, which of course I always thought. But yeah, so we have that, and it's sort of, I think it turns out Eric is telling the story to Jessica, but in this scene we see that he's basically got one more chance to give them their money, and I think that's why he essentially comes to Jessica. I'm not sure how the one night stand or his relationship with her fits into his plan. I'll get onto that in a minute, but I mean, I think that was a bit vague. I mean, it could have been that he just wanted to get her on side and wanted her help with this. But anyway, I'll get into who Eric is. Essentially, he has his own set of superpowers, and basically what that is then he is able to read people through some sort of mind power, and essentially he uses this as part of a con. So what he basically does is he's able to identify crooked people and people who would have secrets, which can essentially be used against him. So what Eric has been doing is he's been blackmailing these sorts of criminals or shady people, and that's his way of getting money off them, because obviously, he threatens to expose their secrets if they don't give him money, sort of thing. But obviously in this one case things have gotten out of hand and he owes them money, and things have got violent, so to speak. So yeah, so as things tend to do, things have gotten out of hand with his schemes, and eventually it's sort of caught up with him. So he sort of wants Jessica's help. I think, first of all, to say on that, I think it's actually a nice reveal, the way it was handled, and it's a really, really interesting twist on it, I mean, you could say it's a little bit cliche, him having special powers, a bit like Jessica, and so there's maybe a bit of a bond there. But I think, they obviously there had to be something else to him, and I think it's a nice little twist on it. You wouldn't really have seen that coming. So and again, it's quite, again, it's a very murky sort of thing where, on the one hand, he's a sympathetic character because, I think in some cases he is screwing over very, very dodgy people, at least, and I mean, obviously there are consequences. Yeah, and I think the impression is that he just got in over his head, and yeah, maybe he was a bit naive, but I'm not excusing him, of course. What he does is wrong, but yeah, I do think there's light and dark to his character, is what I'm saying, basically. So I thought that was handled really well, and so what ultimately happens is that I like the actor as well. I'm not quite sure who's playing him. I'll try and check for the next episode. I forget. I've seen, again, it's another familiar. And I will say, as I go along here, I think this season has been really well cast. I mean, it's not just the obviously the main cast, which is established, but the guest stars this season have been a really high quality. There's really been some gems in there, and some actors I've not really seen before. I might sort of recognise them from The Odd Thing, but certainly not big names. So yeah, the casting this season is proven to be really top notch. But yeah, there's a link with Eric and the person who stabbed Jessica, which obviously at the start of the episode still hasn't been revealed. So Jessica helps him out, and what they do is they go through because he obviously has these connections, they go through all the people he's wronged, and or the people who are after him, or the links, the people he has basically screwed over, because one of them potentially is the person who stabbed her, and so he's sort of the link to how she eventually gets to this person, but at the same time she is helping Eric out. And so they go through various people and they sort of bring them to justice, so that Trish again gets involved, but there's still a bit of tension, and there's still a clash where Jessica is kind of telling her, stay out of this. You're not really up to this. It's too risky. And at the same time, Trish is still defying that and still going her own path and doing her own investigation. And eventually they do come together at the end, but for a while it is that tension again. But anyway, I think one of the big moments of the episode is then Jessica. So she helps Eric out with the family, with this crime family. So she finds them, tries to bring them to justice. But what ultimately happens is she stabs the woman in a sort of a fight as they're sort of bringing them to justice. It spirals out of control, and she in defense sort of stabs her with a spike, and it's a really well directed scene because you really see how it's partly comedic because Jessica is dishing out the brawn and sort of has things in control, but there's funny moments in the scene. But then suddenly this thing happens out of the blue, and obviously Jessica feel badly because in general she doesn't really kill people, or she doesn't kill civilians, if you like, as part of her work. She obviously brings shady people to justice, but yeah, she's obviously not in the killing game. And so this is a really shocking moment for her, and yeah, I think again it's more character growth because she is, I think, maybe questioning some of her decisions or some of the methods, and thinking about changing and becoming a bit more human, a bit more less reliant on brutality, if you like. So it's a big shocking scene, and I think it does bring home some of what the season is building up, and so I thought that was an effective little scene. So yeah, ultimately they're brought to justice, but there is that sort of twist to it. And eventually what we build to is then Jessica finds she's led to this guy called Gregory Schlesinger, his name is, and another familiar actor. And I'm not sure of his name, but I'm pretty sure he was in Sopranos. I think he played one of the family in that, or one of the obviously other gangsters or mobsters, I guess is the right term in that case. And it's funny, he's also in this amusing bagel advert where again he's playing a more comedic version of a wise guy, if you like. But yeah, he's quite familiar. I've seen a few things, but yeah, he normally plays that kind of role in a way, and this is slightly different. This is I think more disturbing in a way, darker role. Different. I mean, basically we'll get into it, but yeah, it's sort of, it comes out then he's the one who stabbed Jessica. Because there's an instinct, she recognises the way he holds a knife when she's in his apartment, and yeah, it's clear intent and he is a killer sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, obviously, motive why he stabbed her is still to be revealed. But yeah, she's pretty certain she's got her guy. And so what happens in the scene is she attempts to film. Well, she does film him, but her intent is to get a confession out of him. So that's another subtle twist to change in Jessica's character. The fact that she's using much more cagey tactics and she's trying to get it done by the book, and although that's obviously murky because that's illegal, but still, it's the fact that that's kind of the process. Then you need to get a confession out of someone. That's how the law works, even though it's blurry because she's essentially obtaining it illegally. But even so, the fact is she's not going in there all gung-ho and beating him up and even worse. So it is something that she uses a bit more thought behind that. But he doesn't rise to that. He sort of knows what she's up to, and it's a well played scene because from his point of view, he's giving this impression that she's in his house, and so in a way, self-defense sort of thing. He's got the knife, and yes, just standing up for himself. So the way the scene plays out is then they have a bit of dialogue back and forth, and he never openly confesses, although there's a bit of kind of back and forth, and they're sort of building this thing where he's very good at appearing innocent when it suits him, and obviously as part of his cover, and by the same token his innocence is a way of painting her in a more sinister light. And I think a big theme of the season is the murky world of being a superhero and the consequences. And as I said I think it was in the first review, I think Trish has found this out a little bit. Then it's not as clean cut as you would think. It's not a peachy lifestyle. It's something like when it's at its best sort of thing. I think the Batman story gets into. So it's not like a lot of superhero things where everything is painted a bit as black and white, and it's sort of accepted then if the superhero is doing it for a good cause, that sort of thing, and that the character is respected in the city, so it's not really questioned their methods. So this again I think is playing with that. So the way the scene ends is then Jessica, Gregory Schlesinger basically calls the police. He's got the upper hand in the situation, again playing the innocent sort of victim, which technically he is in that scene, but of course there's more to it. But he calls the police, which obviously means she has to back away for now, so she leaves. So that's the setup to Schlesinger's character. And so I think I'm going to get more into this in the coming reviews, but I think one of the big ideas behind his character, and again, really good performance from the actor, but one of the ideas is then they sort of find out that he's this really highly educated guy. He's got all these different diplomas and awards, and he's done all these classes and various things. And I think, to put it quite simply, well, there's two things about that. One, he's been doing that as part of his image, so a clean cut, highly educated, respected, because if someone's kind of highly educated or involved in such things, you're probably less likely to suspect them of crime and, various things. So there's that, then it's an image thing. And I think also it's a way of making him smarter. It's a way of, building his intelligence so he can use it for this other thing, for being a serial killer, which it comes out he is. And so it's literally a way to make him smarter so he can actually outsmart people like Jessica Jones and have these elaborate plans which helps him. So it's a really interesting, unique twist on a serial killer and on the sort of villain of the piece. So yeah, we're going to build on that moving forward, and it's going to be a really intriguing battle, not only literal battle, but battle of wits between Jessica and Gregory. So it's the fact that, I think, again, part of the point of the season is that Jessica is questioning her motives now, her methods, let's say, her role as a superhero in the city or detective. And so I think, the clash is going to be that she has to find new methods to outsmart this new or this serial killer, outsmart Gregory. She has to find different ways to bring him down, and going to get more into the meat of that in the coming episodes. But it was a good first appearance for him. He seems a very interesting villain, and there's a lot of promising stuff moving forward, I think, with him. Good casting with the actor as well. I guess if you think of him maybe as being, in the past, maybe playing slightly lighter roles, comedic maybe. I mean, not so much with Sopranos, but even so, it wasn't a super dark character in Sopranos, and he was sort of a supporting part. I can't remember exactly who it was, but yeah, good casting. Really does a good job with him. So yeah, the two main plots of the episodes I thought were very well handled. I mean, I had question marks over Eric. I wasn't sure where they were going with him, and I wasn't sure ultimately, especially if it was just going to be a relationship with Jessica. I mean, I'm not really against relationships in shows like this, as long as they lend themselves to the main plot, and that I'm really invested in the characters. And so yeah, I think this did answer some of those questions. I thought the reveal with Eric was well handled. Again, I like the actor, so there's certainly promise with him moving forward as well. So yeah, two good sort of additions, and the way it was handled. So I guess just a couple more things. So Trish reveals to Malcolm her superpowers. So that's sort of out the bag as far as Malcolm is concerned. And she basically just warns him, you're on the wrong side with Hogarth, be careful, that sort of thing. And yeah, Malcolm's another character who's a bit, essentially he is one of the good guys, and we are encouraged to root for him. But yeah, there's more complexity and more light and dark sort of bleeding into his character this season. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Trish obviously reveals her powers to him. And back on the Hogarth plot, or Jenny as she's known, her first name, I mean, not a great deal. Again, there's more stuff with her and her ex-girlfriend, her college love, and just small bits here and there. But Hogarth sort of offers her the opportunity to be part of an orchestra, a big orchestra. You know, Hogarth obviously has all these connections, and she offers her. And again, it's another way to get closer to her. But you know, again, I sort of struggle remembering name, but I think it's Zip or Sip, as in SIP, something like that. But yeah, so she's suspicious basically of Hogarth, and she should be. It is Hogarth after all. But yeah, she just thinks it's part of a game, and she's probably right. So although they had a romantic moment last episode, there's again suspicion there, and at the same time the plot is still bubbling with her husband, you know, with Malcolm sort of keeping tabs on him and investigating him. But yeah, not too much happened there, and again I think it's still a case of seeing how that plot pans out. But Carrie-Anne Moss is really good in that part, and I think Hogarth actually is one of my favourite characters. I lost interest a bit with her last season. I did think the whole cancer storyline was very heavy-handed, and yeah, I thought it was a bit out of whack, for lack of a better word, to try and make us care about, a character who essentially is very murky, essentially one of the villains, if you like, although she flicks in between the two because she obviously helps Jessica at times. But yeah, I thought that felt very forced last season, but so far this season I think she appears to be getting back on track as a character. I like the character generally, and Carrie-Anne Moss, you really can't see anyone else playing the role now. She's really impressive. So again, we'll see how that plot sort of develops. And the sort of close of the episode was just Jessica and Trish. As I said earlier, they do come to some sort of a truce. I mean, again, bit of tension, and Jessica does. She kind of suggests, and Trish, I think, smothers her at times, and so they're still not totally on the same page, but they actually do agree to work with each other, and they're gonna now join forces and investigate Gregory and try and bring him down, and so that's going to be the big plot of the season now. So yeah, really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot, and it's now set the pace. It's now set up these big players for the season. So Gregory looks like a strong villain, and I think I'm now much more on board with Eric as well. So yeah, good episode. I enjoyed it. So that was episode 4. So do let me know what you thought about it. In the comments. I will try and keep these reviews coming as quickly as possible. Just to say a couple of things about the channel upcoming, because I do like my sort of retro reviews. I'm gonna sort of mix it up a bit with retro and older shows as well as the newer stuff. Is then I plan on reviewing Seinfeld, the whole thing. Classic comedy, one of my favourite comedies of all time. Now what I'll do with that, the plan is to do each season in kind of one video, not one video, that's the wrong way to say it, but video by video, but each season. So a season in a video. So terrible way to explain that, but yeah, basically it's I think with comedy it's very difficult to really get into big, discussions. Obviously normally they're not very meaty, and sometimes you just talk about jokes in a way. So, and obviously Seinfeld had a really long run, 9 seasons, and they're long. Well, most of them are long seasons anyway, apart from the first couple. But yeah, a good way to do it, I think, is just to do a season each video. So I'll be trying to do that soon, since I'm doing a rewatch. It's actually 30 years, believe it or not, since Seinfeld started. The first episode actually aired in '89. So hard to believe, 30 years. So it's actually fitting that I'm going to be doing this. And I'll obviously get into the reasons why it is one of my favourite shows along the way. One of my favourite comedies anyway. And I'll probably do others. It is worth saying actually on Seinfeld, then it did have a slow start, so actually it's interesting seeing the early episodes, seeing how different they are. And I think, it's one of those things where you wouldn't have pegged it as going on to become one of the classic sitcoms based on how it started. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I'll try and get the first video up soon of season 1, and from time to time I will do a comedy. I think Cheers is one I would like to do as well, because that's another one of my favourite sitcoms and favourite US sitcoms. So yeah, building up a nice little network, nice little schedule if you like. And I will do films from time to time as well. I won't say much about that, but I will try and do current cinema releases and older stuff. I mean, I'm a big horror fan, so yeah, I would like to do horror reviews as well. But we'll see how it goes. I won't promise too much at this stage. But thank you very much for listening. This has been a review of Jessica Jones, episode 4 of season 3, called A.K.A. Customer Service is Delivered. And I'll be back with episode 5 soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.